evening and welcome to T&K Coffee Corner. We thought it'd be good to sit out on our porch today. It's a beautiful evening out, and so we'll see how it goes because we're outside and we're gonna get all the sounds of nature. We live by some train tracks, so at any time we might have a train blowing through here. It's about a block away, but it's pretty loud. So we'll see how it goes. We have some neighbors out and all kinds of things, so who knows what's going to happen in this episode. Our coffee cups today, mine is indeed the Lord of the Rings.
And mine is from our favorite place in the world, Ocean City, Maryland, because I am crabby but cute.
See? That's good. All right, well, today is a very special episode. We're going to be talking about a special thing, a little thing we like to call dealing with disagreements. How to fight. Because, well, look, you're not going to live with somebody for your entire life and not find a time where you disagree. It's just not going to happen. Sometimes we just get up and we're grumpy and we cause a disagreement, or sometimes there's legitimate just differences of opinion. But how we deal with that in a marriage is important. So we don't want to go long. This could be a very long subject, but we just want to briefly give, a little bit of advice. We're not perfect, but the first thing I really wanted to hit is there's a difference between disagreeing and fighting. And sometimes you'll see couples fighting, and every couple disagrees, but fighting, it shouldn't be happening. Personally, Krista and I are finding it a little difficult to even do this segment because we haven't had a whole lot of disagreements. We have had some because every couple has some, but we've never fought. We don't scream at each other. We've never yelled at each other, called each other names. When you do have those outbursts of wrath, those are telltale signs that you have lost control. And one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. So if you've lost that, you've already lost the battle. And you're creating a battle, but you've lost the battle for you and your spouse, and you've created one between each other. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I know when we say that we don't fight, people don't believe us.
People get mad at us sometimes.
But it is the truth, and if you don't believe us, you can ask any one of our 3 children. They've never seen us have a fight. Yes, we have had disagreements, differing opinions on things, but we have handled them, and we're going to go over how we've done that. But our we don't fight. So yes, as he's saying, do you want to do this subject? I was like, well, I don't really know what to say.
Yeah, look, when you get married, you're getting married because you love each other, and sometimes I don't know what happens to that couple that was so in love that they wanted to spend the rest of their lives together, and then like marriage comes in and now everything is ruined, and I don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. I will give this a little bit of advice, something I wrote down. The Lord did not give you your spouse to use as a bad mood punching bag.
Right.
Just because you're in a bad mood, let's put it this way. When you're in a bad mood, usually you are kind of control yourself at work or around others and so on and so forth. But then you come home and just throw up all over your spouse, all your bad feelings and everything because it's your spouse.
Well, because the people you're most comfortable with are the ones that you tend to let your guard down with and let
Sure.
those things out with, because you know that, or you think you know that they have to accept you and love you no matter what. But that is not the case. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works. And I know this. I know that I have had, I've just been in a mood and been snippy, and I know that I have snapped at him, and I will catch myself sometimes, and most of the times I try to catch myself and I try to apologize. You know, I try.
Yeah.
If I don't, I'm sorry.
And we all do it. I've been in bad moods, and it's just been rough. And you gotta really, our neighbor, gotta really reserve, pull yourself back. Your spouse should be the last person to be your bad mood punching bag, not your first person.
Yeah. Some of you have kids, some of you may not have kids, but I just want to say from a personally experiencing, and I think that part of the reason we don't fight is because I grew up with nothing but fighting. That's all it was. When your kids see you fight, it affects them. And I just want you to know that from personal experience. They may choose that is something they never want to experience or have as part of their life, or they may carry that over into their own family someday. But please remember that when you fight, it affects those around you. When you have a disagreement and they see you work things out, that is something completely different.
Right. And when you have a disagreement, that's between you and your spouse.
Yes.
Keep your kids out of it.
Yes, please.
Go to your bedroom, go to a private spot, and hash things out and have your disagreement. But don't have a fight for any kid. Now, I will say this. Talked about not screaming, yelling at each other, and calling each other names. We're talking about normal marriage disagreements. If you've done something horrible like commit adultery, you deserve every scream you're going to get at you, and that'll be the minimum. Yes, healing can happen, but when you break the covenant, don't expect that you can't go, well, don't get mad at me. So that, I think that needs to be said. But we're talking about normal living life together, disagreements.
You're never going to agree on everything. You're
Right.
going to have different opinions. But something you have to know is your opinion is not always right. You may want it to be, but that doesn't make it so.
That's true. So I think something I always counsel new couples when they're getting married, and I hope they keep this in perspective, is that it's you two against the world, not you two ever should be against each other. Yes, you'll have disagreements, but you want to work together. It's you two against the world. If you fight and win, or you argue and win, that means there's a loser. Somebody's lost. And if somebody has lost, they're going to want a rematch. They want to win again. So you're always going to have this dynamic going back and forth. So why don't you two just team up and fight the situation together? Fight the world together. It's you two together. As we said, Krista and I haven't had a whole lot of arguments. I think we had one pretty bad one, and we never screamed or yelled at each other, but we were pretty upset at one another. We didn't talk to one another for a couple days.
This was super early on.
And one of the ways we found to help communicate was that we wrote letters to each other. That way we could figure out what we wanted to say without saying something stupid, and really articulate, how we were feeling, and we, exchanged those letters. And you remember that?
I honestly don't. I think I remember part of it, but it was so long ago and it seems so odd to me now. But it's the same thing as it is with the Lord. Sometimes we don't know what we want to say, and it's easier to write it down than to say it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes writing things down, whether or not you exchange those letters, just writing them down makes you take time to reflect on what you're actually thinking, because you have to think about what you want to say. So maybe, for some of you, before you have that conversation, you may want to write your thoughts out.
Yeah. I think one of the keys is you really need to get a hold of your emotions before you have that discussion. If you find yourself, you're gonna have a disagreement, and if it feels like you're losing control of your emotions, as a couple, you need to be able to say, all right, we need to take a break, and we'll come back in 30 minutes to an hour and discuss this. But both of us, for our benefit, need to get a hold of our emotions, let some of the fire die down or whatever, and then get together and discuss it. Yes, it may be an intense discussion, but never should it be to hurt your spouse or to win points for yourself. The screaming, the yelling, the name calling, it's just not conducive.
Those conversations are to bring reconciliation and unity again, because unity amongst a couple is so important.
Yeah.
So when those discussions are being had, and remember, like he said, they are discussions, you need to listen to your partner with the intent of listening to them.
Yes.
Not forming in your mind what you want to say already. You need to hear what they're saying. There's a difference between listening and hearing.
Yeah.
And you need to hear what they're saying and where they're coming from. It doesn't mean that where they're coming from is right, but that is their perception.
Yeah.
And if you don't hear where they're coming from, you can't say, well, that's not what I meant. Please understand me, or
Right.
something like that. So I think it's important when you have a disagreement to sometimes take a little time before you come together to collect yourself so that you're ready. Because when you go in the heat of your emotions, which take you to places you don't belong, ladies, you know what I'm talking about, okay? And, you need to gather yourself so that you can talk to your spouse the way that's going to bring you back together, because that's the goal.
Yes.
The goal is not to win. The goal is not to be right. The goal is to be together.
Right on. When you get married, you're one flesh, so don't fight yourself, so to speak. The idea is to work things out and get back to, it doesn't mean brush things over and just sweep it under the carpet. Please take care of things, but do it like adults, not like children. Again, it's you two against the world. So fight against the situation, or fight against the misunderstanding. Get things clarified. Communication is the key, and will probably diffuse a majority of arguments, or about to be arguments, if you just learn to communicate.
Yeah.
And articulate and listen. What Krista said about listening is so important. Listen to understand. Instead of, here comes a train. Yes. Hopefully it's not one of the mile-long ones that go on forever. But I think
A good place to close.
a good place to close. So here's what I'll say. When you have those disagreements, there might actually be someone who's actually in the wrong, someone who's in the right. That happens sometimes. It's not just always a misunderstanding.
It does.
But if you're wrong, be humble about it. If you're right,
Be humble about it.
be humble about it. Remember, a winner and a loser means you both have kind of lost, because that's just going to create a need for a rematch.
Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, you're still a team.
Right.
Okay, so the right answer is still the right answer. Right?
Yes.
So you're still a team working towards that right path. Okay? Be humble.
Be humble. Have some coffee with each other and work it out.
And keep your kids out of it.
Keep the kids out of it. Amen. All right, well, if you have any questions, or you want us to bring up a whole nother subject, you're like, hey, Tim and Krista, what about this? Just drop it in the comments and we'll try to answer that. I think we're going to do these we were doing them once a week. During the quarantine, things are starting to lift. We might do one once, twice a month, but we're going to keep rolling these out because we're having a good time doing them. So I don't know if anybody else cares, but we're having fun. So God bless. Drink some coffee, work things out. Remember, it's the two of you against the world.
Always the two of you.
Always the two. God bless you, and we'll see you next time for T&K Coffee Corner.